You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick both inside and outside of the music business. This week, Sarah talks with Matt Greiner.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. My guest today, Matt Greiner, is best known as the drummer in the metal band August Burns Red, but he is also an amazing clinician and educator. And he happens to be one of my favorite people. Today, we are going to talk to Matt about his start in drumming, maintaining a working farm while also finding success in music, and we'll get some valuable advice about hard work and never giving up. Join us as we cover these topics and more with Matt Greiner. Matt Greiner, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you for being here. It's so great to see you.
Good to see you too. We talk every now and then, but it's nice to be face to face.
Yes,
2021 version.
2020,
2021.
Right, I know. We all say, 2020, the year of the quarantine, but it has carried into 2021, and this is kind of the way that we see each other now. So
that's it.
We will see each other in person again. I keep saying that, but it's gonna get there. We're getting there. It's
yeah, I think we're past the point of like talking about potential tours happening and knowing in the back of your head that it's just going to be something that's pushed off into the future. Like we're working on some stuff right now, and we know it's going to happen eventually. It's just a matter of when, and I think finally we have a light at the end of the tunnel. You know?
Yes, you do. And you have so much going on right now, and I cannot wait to jump into all of that. We'll definitely get there. And
I think I hear an echo. Is that okay? Is that coming from me? I don't really want that.
Oh, I can't hear it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Tech stuff, you know? You got to get it right. I love that we're still live. We should include this.
Let me see if it's still happening. Check. So the other day, I was spreading chicken manure at my farm, and some flew in my mouth, and it was really gross. It sounds good now. I think we're good.
Oh my goodness!
I'm sorry. This interview is going to be so much better. Me not having an echo, so I had to.
That would be so annoying for you, like the whole time to hear. That would drive me
myself over again. Yeah, it's good now. There's no loop. It was like a circle or something. So
let's start over.
All right.
Sweet.
Okay.
Take two.
We want to go back a little bit to where you started, Matt, and talk a little bit about, growing up on the farm and then the transition into drumming. Not that you didn't keep working on the farm while you were drumming, but, you grew up on the farm, right?
I did grow up on the farm. Thank you so much for having me on the show, by the way. We just had some tech stuff go on, and I want to get this right for you. I want to get this right for this podcast. It's important to me. And I'm really honored to be here talking with you, and I appreciate you having me. So to the farm, I grew up on a farm that was my dad's farm. So like as a kid, I would see my friends going to local football games and see them skateboarding and BMXing and riding motocross. And I had to stay on the farm and work. So when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, it was a burden and a chore and a headache. And I remember saying to my dad, I want to start this band. And he was supportive of me from the beginning, but I think his response was like, that's okay, but you're still going to help out around the farm. Like you can do this thing, but you also have to keep doing this other thing. Two things can be true at the same time. And so the one always felt like it was a burden. And the other one was like the thing that I wanted to put all my energy into. And then funny enough, all these years later, I'm 35 now, I bought into the farm. Like I willingly went massively into debt to purchase the thing that was a burden as a kid.
Right. And
You know?
and we've had the discussion too, when you were thinking about that and making that decision, and it's a big decision, but I think that, one of the other things we've talked about is that that farm and that hard work kind of like taught you how to work hard towards something that you want, the getting up early and all the repetitive chores that you had. So that's a pretty amazing lesson to learn as a kid.
Yeah, I remember my dad saying to me one time, I was probably 10 or 11. I started playing drums when I was 15, so this preceded that. And he told me, he said, winners never quit and quitters never win. And I said, where did you learn that from? Like from your dad or from a friend? He said, no, I learned it from my wrestling coach. He said, I wrestled in high school and it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It was the most taxing, the most involved. And there are a lot of times that you want to quit. And I just remember thinking that as a 10-year-old kid, like, I've never faced anything that difficult before. And the thought kind of scared me, right? Like, I don't know that I want to be challenged that much by something that I feel like quitting. And then I started playing drums. It's like, this instrument right here is by far the hardest thing I've ever done. And therefore, I love it. I'm still in love with it 20 years later. If it was easy, if I had figured it out easily and quickly, then I would have moved on to something else. So years and years later, I remember just coming to this realization that my dad's like wrestling moment in high school has been my drumming experience over the years. And if you're a drummer and you're listening to this, it just never ends. It's like golf. It's the sport you're always in search and pursuit of perfecting. And it's in that pursuit that we fall in love with this thing, because that margin leaves us with this desire to practice.
Right.
And so much of drumming is just like, I want to get better at this. I want to perfect this. I want to improve upon this. Instead of it just being like, I'm sitting down to play drums. That's some of it. It's fun. But so much of it is this desire to be better than you are today, tomorrow.
I love that. And I love that, one of the things that you've said is that 20 years later, you still get the same joy out of playing drums that you had when you started. And that's incredible.
Man, 20 years. I was saying to a drum student this morning, if I didn't have August Burns Red, I would have quit playing drums. Like, I would have played for a couple years, and if the band had fallen off in 2005 or 6 when we got signed, had we not gotten signed, I would have quit. Maybe not permanently, but you could probably relate to this a little bit. Like, if you don't have commitment in an area of your life, then there are days when you don't want to do that thing, but because you're committed to it, you have to. I have a commitment to playing drums in August Burns Red, and there are days that I don't feel like practicing, or to be frank, you just don't have a whole lot of extra time.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad. Like, you have to sit down, you have to put in the time. And so because I've stayed in close proximity to drumming because it's a commitment, I've stayed in love with it all these years too. So I'm really grateful. I'm really blessed to be in a band that has had success for so long, because it's really kept me engaged, I guess, or just committed to drumming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You have that commitment, that promise to other people who rely on you to stay in it too. So
Right.
That's amazing. And I do want to touch on something else that you said, when talking about doing something that's hard, and I've heard you say, you post video clips on Instagram, which I love. I always watch them because, you have like little snippets of wisdom and inspiration in there. And so thank you for posting those. But you recently said something about, always telling yourself, I can do it. And you try it. And if you fail, you try it again. And, I think about it it applies to music. It applies to drumming. It applies to so much else in life as well. And I think that when you face something that's hard and you push through and you overcome it, it makes you realize what you can do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I was born with a ton of natural drumming talent, and I don't say that to sound humble or anything. It's just honestly, it's the truth. I know myself better than anyone else does. And I look at someone like Tony Royster Jr. or someone like Ash Sohn or someone like Aaron Spears, all these giants in the drumming industry, and I just see like there's like an X factor with some drummers, right? You know what I mean? You see someone and they just sit down and you're like, they've probably always been able to do some of that. For me, that has not been my experience. I sat down the first day I played drums. I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't have a natural inclination towards it. It was very foreign, but I loved it. And so I just worked and worked and worked and worked at it. And so because of my experience with this instrument, I guess I look at it as an example of what can happen in your life if you really put your mind to something. You haven't been given a head start in that area of your life. You haven't been advantaged. You haven't been given this like thrust forward or anything. It's just you're starting where everybody else is starting. And you've been blessed and you've been given this opportunity as a result of your hard work. And I project that same idea on other people then. It's like, well, hold on a second. Like, don't say you can't do that, because I thought the same thing about myself. And all these years later, I'm sitting in a position that you're talking about being in, saying that you could never be in that position. So years ago, I heard this for the first time from a drum student of mine. He's like, I could just never play like you. I could never play an August Burns Red song. And I remember not saying anything back to him. I was just like, all right, I understand. Like, they're hard songs. Metal's a hard genre. And at the end of our lesson, we were working on double bass. At the end of the lesson, he figured out how to go from like, maybe it was like 130 to 140 BPM. It felt like a sizable jump. And you could just see his eyes lit up, and he looked at me, and you could tell that there was a sense of like, wait a second, I just got a little bit closer to the goal that I've been striving towards, that I've always discounted myself towards achieving. Like, I'm never going to meet that goal. And after the lesson, I asked him, I said, do you think it's possible you could one day play an ABR song? And he's like, I do, actually. I did an hour ago, and I do now. And so my goal as a teacher and as an educator is to bring someone from that starting place of, I can't do this and I could never do this, to, I think there's a chance. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take some work, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And then on the heels of that, I also want to say that, I've worked hard at this, but I realize that there's also something else going on. In the Christian sense, I would call it God, working in my life and taking something that I've worked on and using it for a bigger cause. Mm-hmm. Outside of the Christian sense, it would be maybe like destiny or, just finding your purpose in something. But there's something else going on beyond just my hard work and the work of August Burns Red, and that we've been given this amazing opportunity to play music around the world for 18 years now, 15 of which we've been touring. So that's wow. That's a long run.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you bring what you're talking about, not having had a leg up or, come into the drumming world with this, what you feel was like just a natural ability to play and really having to work hard. What you're giving back is pretty incredible, because I see, you're not only teaching, you're not only doing drum lessons, but you are, you have the podcast, you are speaking out, you are talking to people, you're mentoring people. And that part of it is just so incredible. And, between your lessons, and let's talk a little bit about that too, because I did see an announcement, I think you posted earlier today, right? Mm-hmm. That you have the new Matt Greiner Lessons website coming out. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so COVID happened last year. And so we were on tour with Killswitch Engage. We were out with them for 3 days, and NCAA pulled the tournament. Live Nation called off touring, and we went home, and we loaded into our storage unit instead of loading into the Fillmore in Philadelphia. It was the weirdest day. It was just so weird. Like, we should be loading into a venue right now to play for our hometown city.
Yes.
And instead we're loading into a storage locker.
That is so sad. And just selfishly, I was sad too, because you were then headed to Boston and I was going to get to see you
Right.
and Justin from Kill Switch, and it was going to be great.
Yeah, that was bizarre. Before getting to the studio, I'll just talk a little bit about this. So we went out with Kill Switch. We had been prepping for it for a while. I had always been looking forward to touring with them. And day one of the tour, I remember talking to Brent, the guitarist in my band, and he was saying something like, I just wonder how big of a deal this COVID is going to be. Maybe we cancel some of the shows, but I think hopefully we can make it through some of the tour. So day one of the of the tour, there were like 1,900 tickets sold. And in touring, there's a term called the drop rate. And the drop rate is how many people have tickets to the show that don't come. So it's usually a good indicator of enthusiasm for the show, how excited people are and committed to their ticket purchase. Well, the drop rate day one, keep in mind COVID was like a conversation at that point, was only 90 people.
Wow.
Which was like less of a drop than any other time. And we're talking about this COVID-19, this scary thing that's about to happen. Day two, about 1,900 tickets, about 90 to 100 ticket drop rate, still the same sense of confidence. And so we're looking at this like, I don't know, like, is this really going to be a big deal? Is this really going to be an issue? And then day three, NCAA pulled the tournament. Live Nation called us. We played a sideshow in Kentucky, hopped on the bus. I remember it was pouring rain. It almost felt like everyone was feeling this sadness about what was about to happen in the world. And we hopped on the bus and we drove back to Mannheim and unloaded it. And that brings me to my studio. So I've always wanted to build a home studio. And of course, at first it was like 2 weeks, then it was 2 months. And I was like, now's the time to do this. So I went to Lowe's. I said, I need 15 cases of wood. I went to my barn and I was like, I need to find a couple planks that I can sand down and hang on the walls like shelving. I talked to Mike Johnston from Mike'sLessons.com and I was like, is it all right if I model some of my studio after yours? I really like the shadow boxes that you have for your cymbals. I was like, is that okay? I realize I'm completely taking that look and idea. And he's like, dude, you're one of the good guys. Go ahead. I'll never forget that. He was so gracious to me, He
told me that story too, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mike told me that story just about how wonderful you are. And you called him about that. And he was just like floored by the fact that you cared to ask his opinion on it.
Oh man. He's doing what he's doing at the highest level. And so it's just like, I'm going to call Mike and try to not bother him and be like, hey, can I use this idea? It's really cool. I mean, heck, I'm willing to pay for it. Do you need me to pay like a monthly subscription rate, And so once I got clearance for that, I just went to town, I'm the kind of person that when I have my focus on doing something and I forget about everything else. I'm all in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I just poured.
You don't just talk about
everything.
something, you do it.
Yeah. I'm like, I might fail at this, but I'm going to try it. So I launched a drumming website and you pay $10 a month and you have access to these courses and you have access to weekly drummer hangouts. We've had people like Aaron Spears and Luke Holland and Matt Garska and slew of amazing artists. I could go on and on, probably about 40 artists over the last year. And then I break down August Burns Red songs. So if you're looking to learn a song, can't play at full speed, I slow it down to 75% and explain how to play it. And so it's been very rewarding.
It's so great. And I do see you get requests for songs that people want to learn. So that's It's just great that you're bringing that to them. And especially like in this time where that's what drummers are looking for, looking to really kind of spend some time playing and learning and understanding. So the contact with someone who's influential like you and can really explain what you're doing and why is pretty great.
Yeah. I feel honored to be in a position where I can teach people. A couple of years ago, I was getting some counseling from someone, and it ended up being somewhat destructive. And I remember thinking to myself, I remember questioning if I ever wanted to teach again. Like, I remember thinking, do I really want to teach? Like, do I really want to instruct somebody else and give them advice? I mean, even if it's just how to play drums, because I realized for maybe the first time how powerful your words can be in someone else's life, and how little it takes to give advice. A couple seconds of your time, your day, but how important it can be on the receiving end, for good or for bad. Like, you have a lot of power over someone's life. It can literally change someone's life for the better or worse. But for you, it's just it could be a passing conversation. So
Right.
It made me really question that. And since then, I don't take on as many students. I'm really careful about how I talk about things or what I'm going to say or teach. I mean, even when I do a podcast like this, like, I would prefer to talk mostly about my life and what I'm doing versus a whole lot of other people, because I just had that experience. And if you're listening to this and you went through something where someone gave you advice or gave you guidance that they felt like was the right decision and it was destructive in your life, you realize what I'm saying. Like, they probably don't even realize they said it, but in your life, it's changed everything. And you wish you could go back to that point and make a different decision. So
Right.
that's really fueled like my desire to teach well and be a good educator and help people flourish in their drumming and in their lives if I can, instead of like giving them direction that might be in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you do a really fantastic job at teaching. And so I hope you definitely continue on with that.
Thank you.
And the studio looks great, by the way. It looks
Thank
so
you.
good. Good job on that.
Yeah.
I remember you building it. And of course, I was like, of course he's doing it himself. Like, he's got this.
I did everything but the electrical. And Justin, if you're listening, thank you. I kind of suck with electrical stuff and it scares me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're fixing stuff around your house and if it's a light bulb, no problem. But if it's a new outlet or I don't know, light socket, it freaks me out.
I agree. I feel like that's why people apprentice for those jobs, because
Right.
it takes a lot of practice and information. I never mess. I think electrical and plumbing, I think I just am, that's left to the professionals, because
Yeah.
I don't need to zap myself, and also, don't need to cause a flood. So
Right.
that's when you pick up the phone.
I need help.
Right. And it's good to have friends who are knowledgeable about that stuff too.
Absolutely.
And you can do trades like lessons, or if they're not a drummer, you can, a dozen eggs or something like that. So, there you go. And speaking of which, so you are on the farm, you've got your studio, you're teaching lessons, you're doing all this great stuff. We're going to talk more about that stuff soon, but you're also actively working the farm.
Right.
And so I love your videos and your photos, and you're in the tractor, and this is what you're doing today, and explaining a little bit about it. Tell us what you are farming. I know you have corn, right?
I have corn and I have soybeans. We used to do tobacco on the farm before my day. I think we did. It's not really talked about, actually, now that I think about it. Like my great uncles did, and I helped with tobacco, but I don't know that we did tobacco. Now that I'm thinking about it. It's one of those things that like if my ancestors did it, it was like they weren't real proud about it because it's tobacco.
Right. I gotcha.
We don't do tobacco, but we do corn and soybeans, and it's for livestock consumption. So when I say corn, a lot of times people are like, oh, like, can I get some sweet corn from you? And I'm like, you can't eat this corn.
Yeah. So corn to feed the animals.
That's right. And soybeans.
And soybeans.
And
speaking of animals, so I know that you grew up with a lot of chickens because I remember the story of you guys practicing in the
egg room.
Egg room, which I love. But do you have animals now? Do you have chickens and animals now?
We had 14 pigs and we had 4 beef cattle.
Wow.
So like, let's say you and your husband lived, close by, and you found out about this, you'd be like, you'd probably talk to my brother Ben. Hey Ben, can we buy half a pig, like for freezer pork, and then we would actually sell you at a good rate. And my brother claims you'll never go back to eating grocery store pork again. I think it does taste differently. I think there might be a little bit of, he's proud about what he's done with
his
work. They do taste better. And so anyway, we work with a very small amount of animals and mostly just cash crop. I do want to say, so when I was growing up, we had chickens, like you said. We had thousands of chickens. They were broilers, which means they're not egg-laying chickens. We did have an egg room on the farm, and all an egg room is like a giant refrigerator. So it's insulated. It's usually fairly small, and there's a window unit in the egg room. We started August Burns Red in my parents' basement and made our way out of the house into in other words, it was loud. And so we went to the barn and we set up in the egg room, and it was the perfect space for us because obviously being insulated, you could play at any time and you really couldn't hear that much outside of it. So we don't have chickens anymore. We stopped doing that maybe 20 years ago, just before the band. And my brother Jesse now owns that farm. And I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, hey, we're going to level the chicken house. Like, it's kind of dangerous at this point. The floor and the ceiling are compromised, and he has a couple kids, and you can imagine them climbing around in there. It's just not safe. So I said, you're going to level the whole thing? He said, yep, we're going to level the whole thing. And the egg room is one part of this chicken house, sort of separate. It's connected, but it's not internally in the chicken house. And so I said to Jesse, I was like, hey, you think you could keep the egg room? And he's like, keep the egg room? I said, yeah, I mean, that's an important room. Like, that's still, I don't know. Can you keep it? Maybe and he's like, what are you going to use it for? I was like, nothing. Just, can you keep it? Can you keep it? I'm sentimental. Can you keep the first practice space we ever had as a band? And he's like, I guess so. And he's like, what? There's just going to be like a little room by itself with 4 walls in the middle of just grass? Like, what's in that room? Oh, nothing. It's an old dilapidated egg room. It's where some metal band started, years ago. So I convinced him to do this. So I'm anxious to see. I think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. This whole thing's going to be leveled, and then there's just going to be this tiny 10 by 10 room where, like, in 20 years, when I'm too old to play drums anymore, I'll take a buddy over and be like, here's where we started the band, and just open this door, and there's mice running around and rats.
Really? What kind of band were you in?
Oh, we were 2-time Grammy nominated, never got it, but we had a good run,
I love that. I mean, it should be like a tour stop or something on the history of the August Burns Red band.
Here we are and no one gets off the bus. They just stay. They're just waiting for the next stop.
People just take a few pictures out the window, the bus window.
I don't know what that thing is. It looks like a shrine or something.
I love that. Speaking of that, though, in my conversation with Ash Sohn recently, he was talking about having a drum camp. at his studio, like his windmill studio, and like having people come and actually camp around the studio, and which, you know, he used to have a lot of pigs, like a pig farm there. So I'm just thinking in my head, you could have like, you know, the Matt Greiner drum camp, and that could be a stop. Like, you know, you could have practice time in that room.
That's a good idea. I'll have to talk to Ash about that.
Yeah.
You know what? Ash Stone is, I was talking about him this last week. Can I tell a quick story about Ash?
Of course you can.
Okay. So we did Zildjian Live last year. It was one of the highlights of my life, playing with a bunch of drummers I looked up to so much. And it just was very affirming to me as a drummer. I usually discount myself more than I elevate myself. And that was a situation where I like went into a room and did something that I have a lot of pride in. Like I really am proud of the performance and the overall song. And I felt good about it in general, and got home, and I got a call from Ash, and he's like, "Hey buddy, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Good." And he's like, "Cool, man. I just got home." I was like, nice. And you know, when you're having a conversation with someone, you're just sort of waiting for like the reason they called.
Yes. Yeah.
The reason never came. It was like, so you're home now? Like, what are you going to be doing this week? I was like, oh, just, X, Y, and Z. He's like, cool. Dude, that was fun hanging in California with you, man. That was so good. And we just talked for like 30 minutes, just really about nothing. Just like how much fun it was, and just catching up, even though we had only not seen each other for 24 hours. And then a couple months later, the Zildjian Live episode came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Premiered, and I had like sweaty palms. I worked with Emily Smith, and we launched this premiere, and just so much work went into it. And I'm like, I hope people like it. I hope people love it. It came out, and the response was good. And I was getting like text messages and stuff, from friends that don't really like ABR, but like they were seeing me play with a different style of music. So I'm like, I was sitting in my living room, I was responding to messages, and then I get this phone call from Ash.
Yay.
And I'm like, what's up, Ash? He's like, dude, I just wanted to call you and tell you that was so sick. I was in the room when you did that, and I didn't notice how much impact there was with, like, I didn't realize how hard that song hit, I think is what he said. I was like, dude, you just called me to like congratulate me? He's like, yeah, man, you're my buddy. So then we ended up talking for another half hour again, just like,
I love that.
Catch it up. And it meant so much to me. I do consider him a friend, but he's one of those friends that like, he's not someone you talk to often, and you're just sort of blown away by the fact that they would call you and support you and encourage you and affirm you like that. Him and Aaron Spears both do that for me. And when I got home from that trip and had those conversations with Ash, it changed a little bit. It changed me a little bit. Like the way that I talk to other people and respond to other people and call somebody out of the blue, a lot of times it's just really rooted in this idea of somebody did that for me, and I realized how important it was. Like, it didn't take a whole lot of effort on their part, but they did it.
Right.
And so I'm going to do that too. And I hadn't really done that before, where you just like call somebody out of the blue and catch up and see how they're doing, and just say you're proud of them and you want to know how they're doing and what they're working on and stuff. Like I never really did that before, but after that experience with Ash, I started to do that every now and then.
I love that.
I really appreciate that about him. I mean, Ash, and Aaron, and you know what I'm saying when I'm talking about that. Like, they're just like that.
They are so incredibly supportive. And I love that story. That's so amazing and touching. Like, Ash is such a sweet human being and so supportive, and he just loves this industry and the people in it. And like you mentioned, Aaron as well. But it's funny because you've done that for me, Matt. You've called me out of the blue and just said, hey, how are you? I want to check in with you. What's up? Or in text as well. So I appreciate that. And that's a really great lesson too, that, to pass it on, pay it forward, and And that it is so impactful, like how much that meant to you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it really did. It stuck with me. That whole trip really stuck with me. That was right before COVID, and we had a great time hanging out and a couple other good friends of ours together. If you're listening to this and you're not all that familiar with the music industry, then like you might not realize that it's basically just a big family. It's basically just a big family. And when you get to see each other, it's almost like Christmas or Thanksgiving. You have these big meals. You're all excited to go out to eat. Like first you got to finish your work. You got to do the event or whatever reason it is that you're there all together for, which is typically like performance or convention. And then everyone's talking about dinner. It's
yes, like there's always a dinner plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes with horseradish.
Oh my goodness. Yes, with horseradish. That's a story. I need to tell this story.
Yeah, tell that story.
Because it's so good. When we are at PASIC, the PASIC convention, Percussive Arts Society, in November in Indianapolis, we always take, artists out to dinner, spend time with the artists who are performing there. And one place we have to go is St. Elmo's. That's like a tradition, the St. Elmo's Steakhouse. And they have this appetizer, which is shrimp and horseradish sauce. It's homemade horseradish shrimp cocktail sauce, right? So so that's one thing. Anyone who's new to this experience has to try it, has to have this cocktail sauce. And it is it's not spicy. It's just like hot in the way that you feel it in your brain. It's the only way I can describe it. And, usually, there's, someone will take a big bite of it first because not knowing just how hot it is, and eat it. And then, the tears come and the sweating happens. And it's just one of those like rites of passage. But Matt Greiner not only like loved it and ate, his whole shrimp cocktail, but then ordered a second one. And we were just like, what?
I thought you were going to say I almost murdered. And Matt Greiner not only loved his first serving, he almost murdered Kaz with his first. Poor Kaz Rodriguez will never forgive me. Are you kidding me?
We were all just in awe. Like the waiter came over and you asked for a second one. And we were just like,
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
that
man.
was serious.
That was so good.
That was so good.
And it was so good, in fact, that you sent me for Christmas.
You sent me horseradish for Christmas, just horseradish.
Nothing else with
it. And it was probably the best gift I got.
I have no idea what else I got that Christmas.
Right? Oh, I love that. Yeah, it was the actual St. Elmo's horseradish sauce that you can order. You can order it on Amazon.
Oh, really? I did not know that. That is good to know.
That's my secret.
And this podcast episode brought to you
by St. Elmo's. We'll have to put a link in the description so anyone else would
link in the description. Use code Sarah.
It is so good though. But yes, that's one of our drum industry traditions. And you're so right. It's like a family reunion. I say that NAMM and PASIC and content creation events where everyone's together. It really feels like a family reunion.
Do you remember PASIC when the year I played PASIC, it was all because of you. A lot of my clinics, I've done 2 clinic tours, man, and they were both because of you, Southeast Asia and South America. And then PASIC and Zildjian Live. So like 4 huge, like life-changing trips. Seriously, 4 huge life-changing events in my life. At the very top of what I've done. Individually, like it's one thing to play drums with August Burns Red and get nominated for 2 Grammys. Like that is incredible. I'll never forget going, and I'll never forget being nominated. But individually and sort of separate from ABR, some of the best things that I've been able to do are really because of you, and I really am so thankful for that. Thank you.
Matt, thank you for saying that. You deserve it, though. You are fantastic. Not just at playing, but as an ambassador for companies, for the companies that you represent.
Yeah,
you're just so great.
I believe in the companies I play for, and I'm just really honored to to have been given those opportunities. But at PASIC, my clinic was over, and it was time for Eric Moore. He was at the very end of the day, and of course, Eric Moore is such an amazing drummer and just like an anomaly of speed and precision and feel. And so he was giving this clinic on how to move fast around your kit or something with speed. And of course, being a clinician, like you're in the room already and you're able to watch him sound check. And I was just I was like a kid. I was so giddy for this experience. But I was like, I'm going to compose myself. I'm not going to let anybody see that I'm excited for this. Like, I'm sitting next to people at the companies I play for. I just taught like 2 dudes ago. So like, I can't act like I'm excited for this. So Eric gets up, his kit like half surrounds him. It's huge. And I'm like, dude, like, I wonder if this is going to be any good. Like, is he going to be able to play everything that's up there? And is he nervous? Like, is he just going to like stay laid back? And he sits down and he's just like, it was like that sound, amplified through a PA for like 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And it's like me, you, and maybe like 10 other people, like in a room can seat about 1,000 people or so, right? Is it about 1,000? It's about 1,000.
I think so.
It's big room, 10 people, big room, empty. I'm sitting in the front, arms crossed, and he just starts doing this, and I can't take it anymore. And he gets to the end, and I stand up, and I'm just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And he looks out right at me, and he just kind of like smiles a little bit, and no one else is standing. No one else is even enthusiastic about what just happened. Like, I am losing my mind. And everyone else is just like, man, I cannot wait to go to dinner. I'm like, dude. Oh, so this joke lives on with a couple other drummers.
Yes.
Are you kidding me moment. But man, if you've ever been in a situation where you see greatness and you forget about all of your inhibitions, that for me was that moment because, dude, I just couldn't not do that. Like I had.
You can't help it. I do remember that. Yes.
Gosh, this is so sick.
You just have to let it out. Yeah, I do. Sometimes those moments are surreal when you are witnessing something like that and you're one of the few people that are in the room and you're thinking like, this is not my life, right? Like,
this is insane. Like, did you guys just see that? That is... Man, I was a little kid. And you know what? I'm wondering if you had that moment when you were going through your camera roll and saw that you had been photobombed by Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pictures of all time.
I love that, we always seem to go back to the Bieber bomb. I don't know. It just...
Well, because how many people have been photobombed by Justin Bieber? Just full sprint in the background. It was in his like long hair days. And it wasn't even windy. It's just that he's running so fast, his hair is just up.
Right.
And it's you and a friend just like, let's have this nice moment together, you know? And in the background is Justin Bieber full sprint, running the stage or something.
Yeah, I think he was running to the stage. Yes. Yeah, I love that. And I found that picture recently. And then, when I wished you happy birthday, I had to include that picture because, it just lives on. But yeah, these are examples of these moments that like, it's the inside jokes that just keep us going. And, through this whole time period, that time in January, Zildjian Live, the NAMM show, just all being together. And I keep saying this, but it like has sustained me through this period of time where like we're not seeing each other. And you guys aren't coming through on tours, but Definitely I'm seeing things start up again.
Oh, yeah.
I did see that you have coming up like a clinic. Is that in person that you have that?
I have an in-person clinic coming up in June, and then August Burns Red has a show, a live stream event on May 22nd. So when you first, we haven't really gotten into that at all, but you signed me. You were my first rep, I guess, at a company, and it would have been after that. Actually, that was a long time ago. We put out Leveler in 2011. So this is to celebrate 10 years of that album, which we, re-recorded, and we are going to play a show on the 22nd. So there are things happening, like we were kind of talking about at the beginning, right before our technical difficulties. There, at the beginning of this thing, it was like we're talking about touring, but it's not going to happen. And now we're talking about touring, and there's this sense of confidence because of the vaccinations being widespread across the country, and just this feeling of, okay, I think people have a sense of confidence in returning to the life that they wish to live. And
yes.
we're close. We're not there quite yet, but we're close.
We're getting there. We're getting closer. But yeah, so this live stream that's coming up May 22nd, right?
Yeah.
So, and people can find that. How can they find that? How can
Go
they?
to www.abrlivestream.com.
Okay.
And then the clinic is actually at a local Bible college. So it's like I think it's like a 3-day percussion seminar, and I'm just teaching drum set. I've done it twice in the past, and it's such a great group of people. I haven't taught in person in a long time. So it's obviously a cool day I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I find myself, little by little seeing people again here and there and being like, oh my gosh, human beings in person. This is amazing. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
And excited for the live stream too, because that's awesome. And I loved how you guys announced that because that video was so great. You always, as a band, you always have the best sense of humor. And I appreciate that so much. And I think it's especially needed nowadays, but I loved that video. In fact, for anyone who hasn't checked that out, go to Matt's Instagram page and check out the video where they announce the Leveler live stream, because it's very funny.
Do you remember coming out to Warped Tours and you would spend a whole day there talking to artists?
Yes, absolutely.
So I was just talking about this recently. You came out with Chris Frezza to the Warped Tour in Mansfield?
Yes, in Mansfield.
Right? Okay. That's where it was, in Massachusetts. Just a big parking lot. And it was 2011. We had just put out Leveler. So you came out, and I remember you and Chris wanted to get footage of me playing or breaking down a new song, and then you wanted to get footage on the bus, right?
Yes.
So this was like one of the first times that we were working together in a media fashion. Like we were trying to create some content, and I was so nervous because I hadn't really done anything like that with you or with anybody. So we were backstage, which at Warped Tours just means you're under a 10x10 tent in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to talk about this song Divisions. And Divisions starts with this really odd time meter. And I didn't know what I was talking about. I had no idea what I was talking about. I had no idea how to count it. I just knew how to play it. So I'm talking about it, and I'm trying to feed off this kid who's trying to help me as I'm in the moment talking about, well, yeah, you just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's 1/16 short of 4/4, and I'm just trying to sell it to Zildjian.
Yes.
And afterwards, I was on the bus. I'm like, oh my gosh, my first video was Zildjian, and I look like an idiot. And so Chris set the cutover, and he edited it in such a way where he made me look good.
Aww.
I was real happy about the fact that I think he just cut my talking. Is probably what happened. He just had me play.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, hey, Matt doesn't know what he's talking about. Let's just let it play. And so I was talking about that recently because obviously Divisions being on Leveler, it's all very fresh in my mind. But that was one of the first times you came out and we're like filming content for Zildjian for like a breakdown series or just for your social media, you know?
Yeah, that was like really back in the day. I remember those days. Oh, I remember, going to concerts with a film camera taking
Oh my
photos,
gosh.
So I know way back in the Stone Ages with the film camera. But yeah, like it's, when we started getting like smartphones and stuff, that was fantastic. But
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I would
and
say
then
so.
using GoPros for the first time, like the first generation GoPro. I don't know if you remember how they worked, but not super intuitive. Like I just remember going like, is it on? I don't know.
Yeah, you get like the classic, like this face.
Yes.
Like, is it on?
Yes, is it on? And nowadays, of course, like you can just pick up your phone and you're like, oh, here's what it looks like on the GoPro. I mean, it's amazing. It's come so far so fast, but like capturing content at shows back in the day wasn't really even possible. Like you definitely didn't get video. The photos you got were like grainy. But like it's so amazing nowadays, the capabilities and what you all are capable even of doing on your own while on tour. I mean, so many. Well, you guys have your photographer, videographer touring with you. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. Ray. Yes. Amazing.
Ray is wonderful.
So good, right? Yeah. And he's captured stuff before, for different organizations that I've worked with and, been just incredible. So that's just amazing. And that's like the thing to do, have someone on tour with you, capturing content, having like a social media person. So it's just changed so much.
That's cool too. Like you bring up Ray, it's funny to hear from your perspective, you being a rep and a friend both at the same time. And like, so after shows, you come on the bus or before shows and, of course we're a family, right? So crew's there, band's there, Ray's there. And so it's nice having a photographer on tour with us or videographer because you can be like, hey, let's get a picture with Sarah. Like Sarah's here tonight in Massachusetts. So then he takes a picture. It gets uploaded to Dropbox. We send you the picture, and now we have, just a nice memory of that show that happened. And I really appreciate that about JB and Brent and the rest of my band, the way that we handle things with our crew, because I can't take a whole lot of credit for that. They've always been very focused on investing, time, resources, finances into creating a family where everyone feels supported and purpose in what they're doing. And we benefit from it in a way that maybe might not seem like a huge return, but in the long run, it's a really, really valuable investment in that it's not only a friendship, but it's like, I mean, we're a family, obviously, but like you have this product that you've built over the last 10 years because you've had that person on board and have invested into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is really important. And, speaking of your band, your family, do you all live near each other still? Are you still in the same area?
We live within the same 30-mile radius with the exception of our bass player.
We're all pretty close.
It is. It makes it really, really nice. Now, our crew is widespread.
Spread out, yeah.
We have to fly some people in from Colorado. Ray lives in Washington. But you know what? No problem. Easy flight. And once we're back on tour, it'll be... I have a feeling like first show, like we've talked about this, we were talking about getting a big red scissors
and just having this like
a ribbon
across the stage, and just whoop. First show, we're playing, it's wild, and I have a feeling it's just gonna feel like we didn't skip a beat, like right back into it.
I believe it, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm so excited for you for that moment. And I can't wait to see you all live again soon. It's It's just been too long. I have a really super important question for you.
Okay.
When are you going to get the corn maze together?
From the announcement video.
From the announcement video. I was like, yes, but now that I'm thinking about it, if you have your drum camp out there, you could have a corn maze.
Have a drum camp in the corn maze.
You have to find your way to the drum camp.
Where's the sound coming from? Oh my gosh. It would be you'd be so disillusioned just walking around in a cornfield, drums banging around somewhere, you can't find it.
Right?
I feel like it would kind of suck to play drums in the middle of a cornfield.
Yeah, it might. Right there in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sound might be a little off.
Yeah. You might be your kick drum, like it's the classic kick drum slide. You know how when you're playing and you're not on a good carpet and it just slides, you're playing like Tommy Lee with your feet completely flexed out. Yeah. Kick drum's just sliding.
The visual is fantastic though. So. I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, so we want to tell people to go to buy a ticket to the live stream, right? Do not miss 10th anniversary of Leveler. It's going to be great. And check out mattgreinerlessons.com for more lessons and more.
That's right.
And your Total Percussion seminar coming up June 25th in person, which is amazing too. So
that's it.
And we'll put some links in the description. But Matt, thank you so much for being here today and being my guest today and catching up because it's always fun.
Thank you very much. This means a lot to me. I've done a lot of interviews and most don't get it as right as you just did with having the details down. And I know you have a couple people behind the scenes, so thank you to the couple people behind the scenes and the support system you have to make this happen. But if you're listening to this, thank you very much for listening. And I just want to say that, if you are that person who's sort of not really sure how to continue on doing what you love doing, or you feel like you're inadequate, don't give up, because I'm a farm boy who plays in a metal band that's been doing it for way longer than what I ever imagined. And by the way, one of the best things about doing it for a long time and actually, finding success is finding friendships like this with someone like Sarah, who's been a friend of mine for a long time. I mean, over 15 years at this point. So just remember that along the way. Don't always chase the goal that you think is the ultimate thing. You'll find a lot of people along the way that will make it worthwhile. So thanks for listening and supporting my band.
Thank you, Matt. All the best to you, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.